Call me by your name and tell me you love me. Anyway, yeah, I'm logging on. You can see I'm a hot mess. Look how crazy my hair is this morning. It is just gone nuts, frizzy with the humidity. So, guess what? I'm just going with it. I'm in the middle of trying to sweep, mop, and dust everything because I want to completely banish that stale smell of a house that's been shut up for over a week. So, if you don't know who I am, I'm Suzanne Titkemeyer. I wrote for Pathos for almost 10 years, a column called No Longer Quivering. I still write sometimes. I still do other things. Hey, bossy. So here's the thing. I wanted to address a few things. I haven't hardly followed the Gabby Petito thing, like I said, just a little bit in the States when we were going past CNN on the thing. Now, I've noticed that Without a Box of Kleenex has done quite a few videos on that. On last night, she was talking about residency. I'm going to correct some missed assumptions by people about residency. And that goes with Costa Rica here, too, because you have to know what your possible residency status is. And this even changes from state to state, from place to place. I'm going to start calling Without a Box of Kleenex Pestilence Adams. I know that sounds cruel, but she has said and done so many awful things and acts so creepy and smiley when there's any kind of crime that my new name for her is Pestilence Adams, because she's always rubbing her nose on things. And that's one of my big things. It's like, you don't have a Kleenex, please don't touch your nose. I mean, we all need to touch our nose sometimes, but don't do it with a blanket. No blankets. No blankets, like no scrubs. So I don't want to talk about her pestilence anymore. I just wanted to correct the assumptions about residency, because residency is something that we've been involved in trying to get residency here in Costa Rica since the beginning of the pandemic. Okay, and we've moved several times overseas, to the States, switch states. Residency is not just a straight across the board, you live there now, so you're legally a resident. That's not how residency works. Yeah, bossy. I saw that. That's what I came up with. Pestilence Adams. They're creepy and they're kooky. It's mysterious and spooky. They're all together ooky. The Adams family. So when I see somebody doing something like that, it just tells me a whole lot about them. On camera. If she does that stuff on camera, what if she do not on camera? So anyway, let me stop ranting about her lack of all hygiene, because I could go off on a rant about that for an hour. Residency. Back to residency. Costa Rica makes it very hard to become a resident. The beginning of the pandemic, we filed our residency paperwork and it was kicked out of the system. Why? Because it's a pandemic and everything was shut down for a long time here in Costa Rica. And when they shut everything down here, they kicked everybody's residency packages out. So we got to start again. We have started again. But the clock is ticking. I'm getting all the paperwork re-apostilled, re-signed off on, the whole 9 yards. It takes months and months to do. It's expensive. It's difficult. They make it that way to make sure you really want to be a legal resident of Costa Rica, because once you're a resident, you are also taking advantage of their free healthcare, of their socialist healthcare system here. So there's that. And I don't plan on using that except for maybe picking up free meds. Free meds are awesome. So that's how Costa Rica does it. Just down the road, Belize and other places in South and Central America, they have things like you just live there 6 months. Some of those countries will allow you to be residents. Carolyn, hey, if you file a piece of paperwork after living 6 months there, you're a legal resident. You're not a citizen, no. And my understanding is that Costa Rica does not allow outsiders to be citizens. You have to have a family member that was born here in order to file any kind of citizenship. And that's how it is when you're residency in the States. It was stated that if you just move and live somewhere, you're a resident. That is not true. Like I said, you have to take time and attention. Many places in the States make you come turn your driver's license in, show up with bills showing you live there, proving that you are actually physically located in that state, turning over your driver's license, registering to vote in that area. You are considered a resident at that point in many places. Some states don't have those laws, and you can just show up and be a resident. Carolyn, did she run into the fact that it is in America? Because that's the thing that I see everybody running into here who leaves. Do you find the first couple of months are here, and then they're like, oh, holy, you know what? They cannot live in a society where there's no malls, there's no local fast food, that you can't see football on TV very easily. People run into that. Culture is very real. And either you learn how to deal with culture or it breaks you when you leave. I know a lot of people that come here and think it's going to be super, super cheap, and it's not. And they run out of money and they find they can't work here or they can't find an online job. That's the sort of things that break people. That's why Costa Rica has such tough residency requirements, because they want to make sure if you're going to sign up for their socialized medicine, you really want to be here. So I tell everybody, come here for a year, 2 years. Do not buy property until you are committed to staying here. Because I cannot tell you the times I've seen people buy $1 million houses, turn around and leave 2 years later. A friend of mine just sold her $1 million condo in Las Perlas. Beautiful building, beautiful building. You're on top of a hill and you're like 4 or 5 stories up, and you have the most beautiful beach views you've ever seen. But the culture got to her and it killed her pretty much. She killed her desire to be here. So she left and she sold her place at a pretty big loss. Small Town Jewel, I am doing well. I'm just explaining about residency requirements all over the place. Hey, Prairie, residency requirements, like I said, from state to state, they vary. Even though it's being stated that you just have to show up, ask all those migrants on our U.S. border to the south, the U.S. border to the south, if all they have to do to be residents of the U.S. is just show up. Not it at all. Like I said, same thing with being a resident of another state. We moved to Virginia. We had to switch everything over to Virginia before we were considered a resident. And that's kind of how it is. So that's what I have to say about it. It varies. You can't make a blanket statement and say that everybody can be a resident. Like this person is saying about Brian Laundrie and Gabby Petito and their families. It just doesn't work that way. It's not at all. She lived in France for a year and Switzerland for a year. So she'd been a vagabond for the better part of her life. She's 75 now. Yeah. Prairie, I'm getting ready to talk about that. I will once I get it sorted out. I am still unpacking. I'm still putting this crap away. My Bucky the Beaver neck pillow, and my organizer. I'm still putting stuff away. I had a ruptured in my bag that I keep my toiletries in. I will show you a little bit. I bought this yarn when I was in the States. I'm having some fun with this. It's Lion Brand. It's one of those shawl on a balls, and that's what I'm making. I'm making a shawl because this trip I am freezing my cojones off in the plane air conditioning and the air conditioning of everywhere I'm going. So I'm making a shawl to wrap myself in for those times like that. So that's really what it is. So here we are. And I have to go and finish cleaning today because the house still smells a vaguely smell of cat. And I'll be cleaning until the cat smell goes away. And I know, considering I have a lot of strays coming in out here, that can happen quite a bit. So to Aaron Thompson, I haven't been keeping up with the new independent fundamentalist Baptists as much as some people have done. I've been coming to the conclusion that they're super toxic. I've always thought that. But after what happened with our poor friend who was doing the Reason Files too, and he disappeared and then ended up dead, I think that the new independent fundamentalist Baptists are possibly murderers as well as other things. I feel like they bumped him off. Pizza bread, sausage and cheese under the broiler, peas, oranges, smoothie, so easy and fun. That blue yarn is pretty. Prairie, that is the way to go. That sounds like the kind of lunch I would have. So what's going on with Thompson is pretty much internal. It's only recently started to leak out to outsiders. If you remember, Aaron Thompson was one of the guys whose son was involved, whose young adult son was involved in the whole sexting scandal, where the young adult men of the church, some of Pastor Anderson's sons, Aaron Thompson's son, some other young men of the church, were sexting the 13 to 14-year-old girls, saying very inappropriate things and trying to arrange hookups and talking abusively. So his son was involved with that. The Dirty Donnie channel. Yeah, that's pretty crazy. Oh, thanks, Real. So what he's been doing, apparently, it's come out that there's financial chicanery. I haven't done a deep dive yet to get all the information, so I'm not even going to pretend to be an expert. A friend of mine sent me some links. People who stood against when poor old Ann Fannin got kicked out of Steadfast Baptist Jacksonville are now turning against Aaron. What's going on is Aaron has been apparently spending church funds on all kinds of things. One of the biggest places he was spending money was a vape shop. Not a vape shop that sells weed, but a vape shop that sells vape pens, that sells bongs, those kind of things that you would smoke marijuana or tobacco even in. And then also supposedly at a weed shop. That's what I'm hearing, that he was using the church funds for that sort of thing and to pay all his bills. He wasn't paying his bills with his own money. He was paying his own personal bills through the church. And they're saying that they don't know for sure that it's Aaron. It could be his sons. It could be his wife. His wife has apparently been kind of gray rocked by the entire organization for some of the things she said and done. I don't know, but they're saying that all this is being spent when it shouldn't be, and apparently the IRS is sniffing around. So here you have Aaron Thompson from the Sure Foundation Baptist Church up in Vancouver, Washington, doing all this nonsense. And the people of that church are turning against him. He's kicked a number of them out because that's how it happens in the new IFB. You disagree with the pastor at all, and you are persona non grata. Not only that, they will demonize you and say all kinds of things about you. That is one of the things that you can say about cults when you have cult behavior, whether it is a Christian cult, any other religious cult, any other faith cult, even social organizations. I've seen like the atheist groups go down for things like this, and like dog registry, Windsor type dog shows. So there's all these organizations. When you have these organizations and you give somebody, I've got to move my bucket, too much power, this stuff happens. People will misuse money, think they have all the power in the world, and it comes back to bite them in the rear end. Food delivery was allegedly it was another huge expense of the church funds. Unclear who it was. Yes, I heard that too. Prairie, you're hearing more than I am. I just stumbled into this. Somebody, Bossy, I don't think so. I do not think so. I think that was Kenneth Copeland. He's the one that has to have the private jet to fly hither and yon, which I don't understand, even though I will say that flying now has turned into the bus in the sky. I'm just going to come out and say it. This trip, I was happy nobody got into fights over seats. So that was a plus, because back in July, I saw a ton of people having arguments with the stewardesses. Well, excuse me, flight attendants, I'm old, about where to sit. Look, I get it. It's a drag to sit in the very back of the plane. It's a drag to have to sit with people that you have nothing in common with. But that does not give somebody the right to ask for money to have a private plane. A plane is the best place to talk to God. That's a new one on me. That is a new one. So even though I do sometimes pray, particularly if the plane is doing this number and you're having a lot of, what do they call it now? The new term is rough air. You're not allowed to say turbulence any longer, but rough air. Air isn't rough, but it can be kind of turbulent. So they're going after Aaron Thompson. And I am hearing also rumors about the guy in Texas. I can't even think of his name right now, but he's part of that whole group. Supposedly he's been doing some financial chicanery. And this isn't the first time we've seen this in this group. When Adam Fannin was driven out of Steadfast Baptist Church in Jacksonville, Florida, he made allegations about Stephen Anderson, the, quote, Pope of the new IFB. He said that Anderson was taking money willy-nilly from other churches' budgets to spend on God knows what. He was saying that they were misusing and mishandling the money all the way back then, and they kicked his rear end out. Now, I understand that he is now pastoring a completely different church, and he's let go of some of the crazy Stephenisms that he was following, because that's the one thing about Anderson. Yeah. It was something in the news today. I forgot which airline, but someone was trying to get into the cockpit from Boston to Puerto Rico, if I'm not mistaken. A really scary situation. Oh, that is scary. That's quite frightening to me that somebody would even attempt to do that, especially with the locking cockpit doors now. And we've seen there's been a lot of things happening recently with the airlines. Some of them don't have proper fuel supplies. Spirit and American had to cancel oodles of flights. This time when I went, Delta kept rearranging my flight schedule. And since I had bought economy tickets, that's well within their rights to do so. Passenger shaming. You wouldn't believe the fights that happen when planes are in flight. It's one thing I don't miss now. Carolyn, I don't blame you. The day that they were fighting on the plane behind me, like I said, I am fully disabled now. If I go on the plane, I'm using my cane. And I'm boarding first because, like my husband saw this time, getting on this time, it took me a lot more time to settle and get everything just so. And so it's not like normally I would get on the plane, sit down, put everything where it goes. I'm slow now. It just is what it is. So the airlines, it's actually kind of funny now. Delta has done it and American has done it, where they bumped me up to business class several times now. And American bumped me up to first class once. So I was extremely grateful, because you're talking about wider seats. You're talking about less crazy behavior among the passengers. You're talking, it's just a smoother experience all the way around. And I am just so grateful when I'm booked to sit in the very back of the plane and they decide, no, we're going to move you up. We're going to move you up all the way to the front of the plane. I told my husband, I think that it is going to be worth it to pay 50 or 60 extra dollars to sit closer to the front. I think I'm going to start booking my tickets that way. Carolyn, yeah, I'm 61, so I'm not moving at the speed I once moved I once moved. I think there has been an uptick, another truth, in the incidents because, like I said, when I flew back on American to Costa Rica, and it's a good 3 hour flight, maybe 3.5 hour. Maybe it was a little longer that time because I flew out of Charlotte that time instead of flying out of the Atlanta airport. For a long time, I only took Spirit because they definitely the cheapest guy in the sky. I don't mind having to buy my Coke when I'm in the air. But I quit flying Spirit because they only fly into San Jose. They don't fly into Liberia. And it's worth it for me to pay an extra $150 to fly within about an hour of my home. Whereas with Spirit, I was a good 5-hour drive from my home. And let me tell you, you getting off that plane all wobbly, the last thing you want to have to do is get in your car and make a 5-hour drive home. Huge uptick. Yes. I think they should start a no-fly list database because when you have people that act like that, and pre-pandemic, I had an incident. I don't know if I've ever told you guys about this. Pre-pandemic. Oh, my goodness. I was flying Delta, who I usually like. They're usually really good. I was flying Delta from Atlanta to Washington, D.C. It's about an hour. It's an hour, hour and a half flight. It's not very long. And what happened was I got seated in the very back of the plane with one row behind me because I'm buying that cheap ticket as usual. And there was a very drunk guy sitting right behind me, right behind me. Because, you know, when you get to the very back of the plane, sometimes it's only two seats. We were in the two-seater. So this guy had a guy with him. He had a friend. And the stewardess kept summing up and saying, "Sir, can you fly? Are you able to function?" And his friend kept saying, "Oh, he just has a cold. He's taking some time. He's taking some NyQuil. Leave him alone. Let him sleep. He's going to be fine." Oh, Carolyn. Yes. I grew up in South Louisiana, New Orleans, and all these other places around there. So that's what they told the stewardesses. They conned the stewardesses into letting this guy stay on. Flight attendants. I'm so sorry. My brain just gets these old things that have been there forever, and out they come sometimes. And stewardesses, flight attendants is one of them. No disrespect. I would not want to be a flight attendant or a gate agent either, because I see the abuse these people put up with. And I try to be nice as a result, because I don't want them thinking I'm a Karen. So they said, okay, we're going to give you the benefit of the doubt. We're going to let you stay on the plane, even though the guy could not speak. Okay, first 10 minutes of the flight were okay. Then he started grunting. Then making all kinds of weird noises, okay? He was like, and he started kicking the back of my seat. Then these feet come around the side of my chair, these bare feet. And he starts to stick them in my lap. So this guy is so drunk that he's starting to revive some, and he's trying to stick his feet in my lap, and I'm sitting there like this, horrified that this stranger is trying to put his feet in my lap. I don't know where those feet have been. Even this was pre-pandemic. I don't want those dirty feet in my lap. And then it got weird. He got up and started running around the plane and tried to sit in the stewardess's lap. He just went mental. And then he went to sit down again, and he was out again. He passed out. And by that time, the stewardesses, the flight attendants, those poor maligned people that work on the airplane, got on the PA systems like, "Is there a doctor in the house?" I had flown for years, since I was a small child, and I've never been on a flight where that call went out. It went out. The doctor came back and examined him and said, "Well, he's drunk. There's not a whole lot I can do. You can make him drink coffee, and let's give him some oxygen." So when they gave him the oxygen and the coffee, the only thing that happened is he perked right up. And then he was out of the seat again and running around the plane and just being a general nuisance. And I'm sitting there going, Yeah, passenger shaming. I'm definitely going to have to look into that. It was not funny at the time, but within 24 hours, I was laughing over it because it was just the most absurdest thing you could imagine happening when you're sitting on the back of the plane. And he ran around, he tried to sit in the stewardess's lap again. He's singing all these songs, and he's singing like childhood rhymes and stuff. Well, it comes out later when the friend starts talking. His friend busted him out of rehab in Atlanta and was taking him to D.C. And apparently he got really, really wasted before he got on the plane. I don't recommend that. I can't imagine flying like that. I was telling somebody the other day, it was like, I'm thinking about asking for Xanax or Ativan just to deal with the stress of flying. And I started thinking about it. I was like, no, I've had Ativan before, prescribed for panic attacks when I was having really bad asthma, and I would take it before I'd fly, and I would just pass out. I don't want to pass out. As uncomfortable, as stressful as it is, I really don't want to pass out on the plane automatically because I snore, and I don't want anybody exposed to that. I'm so glad he didn't throw up. I am so happy. You just don't even know. Because there's nothing worse than sitting near someone on a plane who's barfing. And I have been the whole gamut of weird activities for passengers, including sitting next to somebody on a 5-hour flight who had a baby that was just wailing. And I didn't get ugly with them. I didn't even show that I was irritated. I tried to be really nice because I have flown with small children and with babies. And it ain't fun. It's no fun. And there's circumstances where you can't drive. You must do that. So I'm hoping that the next time I fly, I don't have to put up with that. I don't think it's going to be for quite a long time. We're talking about not going back for the rest of the year. We're concentrating on trying to get that residency package back in to start the clock ticking all over again. And when that happens, we won't have to leave the country ever while it's being processed. It's not that flying is so horrible, but, flying, staying with relatives, it's just the whole 9 yards. You're kind of knocked out of your comfort zone. And I'm still trying to recover from the stupid stroke I had. So being knocked out of my own comfort zone is a pretty big thing. I learned that this trip. My trip in July, I was just so sick, I didn't care. I just laid in the bed. I did very little. I laid in the bed. I sat on the sofa. This time I was a little bit different. I was a little bit, I'm better, but I wasn't better enough to be dealing with some of the things that crossed my path then, including the fact that Maryland does not have, where my daughter lives in Maryland, does not have the shopping that Northern Virginia had. And I was not about to rent a car to drive 2 hours to get to decent shopping. And I'm not sure, because I always thought Maryland had all that too, but apparently parts of Maryland don't. Certainly not Prince George's County. So there's that. I didn't get everything I needed, but I'm going to have to break down and order it all on Amazon. I got a lot of stuff that I needed. Delta was wonderful. And my suitcase was overweight. And for the first time, I did not get hassled about that or charged extra. Moving up, the thing that, did he? Prince George's has changed a lot, but it still hasn't changed as much as it needs to as far as shopping and things. So here's the thing, and this goes back to what I was talking about at the very beginning of the video, residency. Costa Rica wants you to take residency if you're a gringo with money. They want to. They want you to. It's costly. It's like anywhere from $2,000 to $5,000 each. So it's not like Belize where you show up and you're there 6 months and you file a government form and that's it. It's not like many other places. You have to do a lot of different things. You have to get your birth certificates, your marriage licenses, all of your legal paperwork from the states, and it has to have a special stamp on the back called an apostille. It all has to be done in the same month for that paperwork. It has to be transcribed into Spanish by a certified translator that Costa Rica will accept. You have to go to the FBI and get fingerprints. You got to get them to fingerprint you. which you could do that at any U.S. post office, but you have to start with the FBI. So there's a lot of things, a lot of hoops to jump through. And you have to meet one of the classifications for residency, like investor status, business owner status, retiree. And there are requirements for each of those things. If you're a retiree, you have to prove you have at least $1,500 every month in income before they'll let you get residency. Investor status, you have to have like $500,000 here, I think. Well, they keep changing it, and it's still changing. This is a changing and evolving situation. That's what's delayed my Costa Rica book because of COVID. Everything has changed. So until you get all your paperwork in and you go into the point where they're no longer going to let you make you leave, you're here on a tourist visa. If you're here on a tourist visa, you have 3 months or 90 days to be here, and then you have to leave the country. What makes that more difficult because of COVID is if you go to Nicaragua, they're going to require you to get a PCR COVID test within 48 hours, proving that you're COVID free. You could go up to the border in Penas Blancas, white penis. I'm sure that's not what it means, but that's how I'm translating it. And you walk across the border, get your passport stamped, show them your COVID test, show them you're COVID free, pay them, and it's about, I guess it's about $26 each, if I remember right, to do that. And when you come back into Costa Rica, you must have plane tickets showing that you plan to leave within 90 days. They used to take Tika Bus or Nika Bus tickets, all different things. Not anymore. Now they want to see plane tickets. So there's that. So you buy the plane tickets and you either cancel them or you go through one of the things like bestonwardticket.com, which lets you rent an airline ticket for 2 days to get through customs. That's what I usually do. It's like $12. So you have to do that coming through. If you don't have your stuff in order, and the thing is also Costa Rica now requires, if you come here on your tourist visa, it doesn't matter if you own a home here like we do. It does not matter if you have outside insurance like we do. They want you to buy traveler's insurance, and that can be costly. When I first started doing it, it was only $80 back in March. Now it has gone to like $900 for the same coverage from the same company. So they've made it really hard. The nice thing is they have waived that now. If you have the almighty COVID vaccination card, if you have this thing, it waives that insurance. And these are the things that I'm talking about that change every time, because before it was strictly the insurance. Now they're accepting the COVID vaccination cards, and we're both vaccinated, thank God. And so we were able to do away with that. But it is a evolving situation here with going in and out of the country, because for many months, all the borders were shut. And if you flew back to the U.S., you could not come back here until they reopened the borders. From mid-March 2020 until mid-November 2020, the borders were shut. You just could not get across. Truck drivers could. It turned into a really weird thing, because a lot of Nicaraguans ended up stuck between the two borders in tents in that no man's land between the two. So if you left, you couldn't come back. Now, I had a neighbor that used to clean our house that went to Nicaragua when all this started, because she has a lot of family there, and was unable to get back until they reopened the borders. Like Jenny from 90 Day Fiance, who has 10-year tourist visa for India. She has to leave the country every 6 months for some reason with this type of visa. That is what they usually do in tourist visas. You have to do that. Now, there are other countries that don't really care, that don't do that. I always research it. And the thing is, I also read the local papers. I read the ones that the gringos read, like the Tico Times, and they keep you up to date. It's like, since COVID, there's been all kinds of restrictions in place on driving. At first, we were only allowed to go out 1 day a week to go to the pharmacy and the grocery store and the doctor's office. And the rest of the time, you had to be on your property with no one else, and you couldn't have people visit. It was just, they shut everything down. Now we're having 3,000 new cases a day, and they've got very few restrictions put in because that shutdown almost killed the tourist industry here, and it tanked a lot of businesses. So now they've reopened to everybody and everything with these restrictions about insurance and all of that. So that prices Costa Rica out of the reach of almost everyone else. Add in that the average Tico has a hard time getting the COVID vaccinations because the health system here, the Salud, keeps ordering vaccines. They ordered 3 million initially and got 10,000. So they're getting the vaccines are trickling in. So any Tico with enough money is flying to the U.S. where they can get the vaccination for free. So that has really climbed the price of tickets here, and it's created its own little snafus. So there's that. So COVID has changed a lot of things. I don't know how much more of this is going to change. But even the Passe de Salud you have to fill out to come back into the country as a health pass, that has changed tremendously since I first started going in and out of the country. I think I've been 4 times now since they lifted the COVID restrictions in November of 2020. I have to leave again around Christmas time. I'm going to do the Nicaraguan or Panama border run. I'm actually thinking about doing something like flying to Boca de Toro in Panama for like a week around Christmas. Except that Christmas time here is like the bar none, biggest tourist week in Central America. Everybody flies down here to lay on the beach. So I don't know. Well, see, neither would I. It did at first. It curbed it. It shut COVID down. We had 1 to 2 new COVID cases a day once they put that in place. And we didn't have a lot for months and months and months and months. Well, guess what? The second that they lifted that, our cases went up. They spiked, and they've been spiking higher and higher. I was just reading this morning on Tico Times that there are no more ICU beds for COVID patients in San Jose, which is where you would be sent if you needed to be intubated. You would go to San Jose, or you would go to Punta Arenas, to one of the big hospitals. You would not be here in Tamarindo. They just don't have that capacity here. So serious things go to San Jose or somewhere else nearby. And that's, I know people here who've caught COVID, Americans. And we do have a large American population here that is anti-vax, that believes yoga and essential oils kills anything. Throw in some surfing and you're all good, according to them. Eat vegan, eat keto, eat gluten-free, and you'll be fine. They refuse to mask. That's why I stopped going to church. No one will mask. Not a soul will mask. They're saying, well, Jesus will protect me. Well, that must be why the pastor has had COVID twice. So we get people that don't have a lick of common sense, that have no intention about following any rules put together by any government about anything. And they're here because they are a little weird and rebellious. And that kind of sucks. I don't like that at all when you have people that do that sort of thing. But what are you going to do? You can only control yourself and your reactions to what you do. For me, I am here. I'm behind that 12-foot concreto wall we have around our place. I go out very seldom. I went out this morning to pick up my car from the mechanic. Mask on, hand sanitizer, the whole 9 yards. And when I went to Costco the other day, hand sanitizer, masks, social distancing. So I have luckily not gotten it, because with my mast cell, it might actually be a bad thing. It might actually be a very bad thing. And my husband has 1 kidney. Today's his 70th birthday, so I really do not want him catching COVID. He would not do well with it, I don't think. Discovery Channel, new 90 Days in the Caribbean. Was on there, but I can't remember. I'm going to have to take a look at that. I laugh. One more story before I even think about going. Costa Rica and international house hunters. I got some stories to tell you about that too. Okay. Well, thank you. So, international house hunters. Our realtor here who found us this house, and the house we're in now, it's kind of funny. We looked at so many houses when we said, hey, let's buy a house. We looked at so many houses and they were so different. They were all different. They were all weird. There was all strangeness about them. One was, it was looked like an Italian castle that was built on a mountaintop. Was you could look straight down and there was Pacific. You could see the Pacific from all the windows of the house. It was a 4,000 square foot house. 2,000 square foot was the master bedroom upstairs. It was lovely. I would have loved that house, but I could not talk my husband into it because it was down a pitted dirt road. And he was not down for that. There was another house that I really liked in Playa Negra that I would have been very happy with. It was a duplex. It was mostly new. Again, you had ocean view from every window in the house. It needed major re-landscaping, and I would have had to do something about that awful garage, but it would have worked. Yeah. So we looked at a place also that was some kind of surfer abode that was fixed up brand spanking new, and it was a typical little Tico house, and they wanted way too much money, and there were bongs everywhere. I was just not feeling it. One of the extra bedrooms was a mattress dumped on top of the concrete wall that was over the master bath. And I was not feeling that one. And it was like, hell no. Plus, that one was not on community water. That one, you had to have your water trucked in every now and then. And that can get very expensive during dry season. So we knew we didn't want that one. We looked at one that was a tiny shack. It really was. It was cram-packed with stuff, and you're in there like this. The bedroom, the master bedroom, you could put, it had a double bed that filled up 3/4 of the bedroom, and you had an air conditioner at the foot of the bed. And there was a room in the back that had bunk bed after bunk bed built in. The pool was about 9 feet by 9 feet. I have never seen anything like it, and they wanted major money for that, but that was also at the beach. I saw one that was done by a Costa Rican architect who was quite famous that was lovely. And it would have worked, except that we have guests that come here on a regular basis because it was one bedroom, one room, other room. Yeah, there's not a whole lot of research on any of this. So the house hunters, while we were looking at all these places, before he showed us this place that there was a contract on, that we had to wait for the contract to get kicked out because the buyer could not get funding. And we said, we have cash. And they took our contract because we had cash and could settle in 30 days. So he was telling me, our real estate agent, he said that he had done a international house hunters in Playa Negra that had gone sideways, and that the people had sued him afterwards, and that the whole show was fake. And I didn't get any details from him about it, except that it didn't work out well for him. And the Americans were upset with him for a variety of reasons. The other one I know of that I know filmed at International House Hunters, I knew the couple that filmed it. They came here about the same time we did. They filmed at International House Hunters, and they didn't buy a damn thing. It was fake. They didn't anywhere end up near where they showed them on the show. They didn't buy anything. They didn't rent anything that was shown to them. They stayed where they were. It was all entirely faked for the show. Yeah, so that episode was filmed about 2 or 3 years ago, I think. Costa Rica, Tamarindo, Chad and Kelly. That's all I'm going to say. So Chad was kind of an interesting dude. He had been part of Gwen Shamblin's circle there, and he'd known Gwen. But I was gently questioning Kelly about why they did a show that wasn't 100% true. And she's like, don't you want to be on TV? Because when she found out we bought a house, it's like, you should call International House Hunters and have them come out and pretend that your house that you bought is the house you're buying and have them take you around and film it and blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, why on earth would I do that? I said, well, because you can be on TV. Being on TV is not one of my life goals. It just is not. I have been on TV before. When I was in college and I was working at a jewelry store, I would do all the commercials for the jewelry store. So I was that. There's been other things through the years, so I have no interest in that. But apparently this woman thought, I'm assuming they did, Bossy. I'm assuming they got paid. But this woman thought that was the neatest thing. They had a premiere at the Surf and Yacht Club. They were constantly bragging. That was their calling card. And I was just not impressed, because it's like, if you're going to fake all that, I have no desire to do that. No desire. And like I said, the properties we looked at were a mixed bag, all the way from $500,000 to $100,000. We looked in that price range and came in towards the lower end because we bought this place because they'd been on the market for a long time. They've been trying to move it. Not many people want to live outside of the American colonies. Now, I have since found I do have American friends. I have one that's a block away. I have one that's a half mile. There are a lot of Americans living here, but we're not in a gated American community. I wanted no place that had a HOA ever again, because we lived in an HOA neighborhood for 29 years, and I used to write pieces for my blog called The HOA That Ate My Brain, because I sat on the board and I've seen it all with these things. Yeah, people... See, oh my goodness, is that the show they say I need an indoor pool, 6 bedrooms, 10 bathrooms, ice skating rink, helicopter pad for $1,000 a month? Sometimes they do. Sometimes they do ask for things like that. In fact, I laugh because I'm on a lot of the real estate lists and the other lists around here. Because I got to tell you, I seriously thought about buying the Italian castle I was talking about when it dropped to $100,000, because it was just this fabulous place. And I kept looking at it and thinking, we could buy that for $100,000, put a small amount of money into doing a few things that I thought it needed, and turn around and rent it on Airbnb. It would have been a fabulous Airbnb place for a family, because it did have so much rooms. It had 3 bedrooms downstairs, the master bedroom upstairs. It was the entire floor. It had something never seen before, a bathroom where you walk into the end of the bathroom and you have like 8 shower heads and you just stand there. I kept thinking that would be a wonderful Airbnb place, but it would be a costly Airbnb place, so you might not rent it all the time. And you have a lot of people here that do rent their places on Airbnb. I've been approached about renting our cabina on Airbnb, and I've never done that. I have no desire to do that because I don't want to let the world and the unwashed masses into my gate. And I leave that for friends and family. When they come visit me, they have a separate space. We have our peace and quiet in our house that I essentially need. They can do whatever. And it comes in handy when my 20-something kids were here, and they were all able to go party and drink and listen to music all night. And they were across the yard from me, and I was blissfully slumbering right here. So I had another point to make about it. I can't remember, but they do that all the time, asking for these things. But now we're seeing a new trend. Usually they show up, they post up the list and say, I want that helicopter, blah, blah, blah. I want to pay $500 a month. And it's like, good luck with that. There are some little cabinas you can get here for $500 a month, plus utilities, but all you're asking for. So we laugh, and a lot of people would post this right before dry season, which is high season here, when all the rents and everything goes up. Since COVID has happened and they've unlocked, what's happened with property here is rents have doubled. They have doubled everywhere except out in the boonies where I am. They've gone up here, but they haven't doubled. What has doubled here also is the price of real estate. We bought our house here 3.5 years ago. We paid $160,000. It was worth at least $250,000 or $300,000. The wall around the estate would cost you $60,000 to $80,000 to put in. We have a guest house. We put in an enormous pool. We put in a hot tub. We re-landscaped the yard so it was attractive, and there's all kinds of trees and plants now that weren't there before. We put in a covered garage, which it didn't have. We've just done a lot since we've been here. So the canton of Santa Cruz, where we pay our taxes on our place, is rated our place is now worth $480,000. That was a year or two ago. Now, with influx of people buying places here and things that set on the market a year or two are getting snapped up in days and prices have doubled, I shudder to think what our house is now worth. But I told my husband, I said, there's our giant nest egg. If we ever go back to the States, we won't even have to touch investments or retirement or anything. We'll just sell the house and live on that for a while. Long time, and people don't always have a realistic reality. Well, now on the list, on the real estate list here, we have people showing up saying, I want a beachside house with 3 bedrooms and a pool, and my budget is $25,000 a month. And I'm like jaw dropped, because it's even as we've had this enormous real estate boom here, that's still a crazy price. I mean, you could get something way under that as a rental. I think it's more realistic, $2,000 to $4,000 a month or something like that. But there has $25,000. Now there are those high-end properties when you get towards Coco, get towards Playa Coco, or even up in Flamingo. But most of the rentals here, even the beachside ones, are not even going to run anywhere near that. So we're having these people who are coming in with loads of money who are driving a lot of the real estate prices up. Like I said, I'm almost afraid to finish my book because so many things have changed, and I'm always having to go in every week or two and edit things because of the changes. We're talking about bringing another car over here. Our old Honda CR-V that we've been driving, we brought it here old. That's another thing I want to say. If you're going to bring a car here, bring an old car. Why? Well, make sure it's a car you can get parts for here. Number 2, the main roads are paved, but if you're going to Playa Negra, if you're going to Playa Langosta, if you're going off the beaten path, the roads aren't paved. The road we're on is not paved. Even though we're 2 blocks off the main highway, our road is not paved. So you're going to ding up your car. It's just a fact of life here. I have routinely had to ford rivers here to get places. And if you take the monkey trail up to Playa Coco from here and you avoid the main highways, you're going to be fording rivers. You're going to be going up over mountains. You're going to be going through potholes big enough to take a bath in. So I laugh when I see people show up with brand new Range Rovers. I mean, brand new with the stickers on them from the UK, or Americans that come here and go down to San Jose and buy a brand new whatever. Why would you do that? You get taxed on your cost of your vehicle, and vehicles are 2 to 3 times here as much as they are in the States. Bring something paid off. Bring something that's 4-wheel drive that you're not going to care if you get a ding or 2 on it. Our transmission is starting to slip a little bit. And I think we're looking at either replacing the transmission or buying a new car. Knowing what mechanics are like here and knowing that there's no one in this area that's an expert on transmissions, and it would be an expensive, lengthy process in San Jose, we're talking about importing a car. One thing Costa Rica has done that's wonderful, because they're trying to get people to move here and buy places and drive the economy, is now when you come, you don't have to pay what we had to pay. We had to pay $6,000 aduana, which is import taxes on our older CR-V. I laughed and said, it's not worth $6,000. Well, here it is. Here it was worth like $15,000, even though I'd be lucky if I get $1,500 in the States for it. So there's that. They're lifting that. They're totally doing away with that. So if you bring a car here, you just need like the $1,500 it's going to cost you to put it on a ship and have them ship it here. Now, I'm sure you're still going to have some paperwork expenses. Like one of the things I remember was a $300 paperwork fee. Also a fee to register it with the people here and to do the retive, to do the yearly, what do they call that thing? My brain's not functioning. Every November, December, you have to go pay registration on your car. They call it the marchamo. So you're going to pay for all those things right up front, and they're probably going to stick you with some paperwork and some loading fees and things. So don't be surprised by that. But they're not going to charge you that huge import fee anymore. The import tax is going out the window. You're allowed to import 2 vehicles and all of your household goods without paying aduana. And we paid quite a bit of aduana on our household goods too. That which they did not seize. That was the crazy thing. They did seize a lot of our stuff, and that does happen here. Your brother is a real estate lawyer. I can't believe some of the crap his clients dish out. Bozzy, I can believe it because I've seen crazy things happen here with lawyers and real estate and with purchases that go sideways. First of all, getting a loan here, a home loan, you know how it is in the States, it's actually pretty easy to get a home loan or to get a refinance. You can't do that here. It's very difficult. Here, cash is king. If you're going to finance something, you're going to need to jump through some pretty major hoops. Credit here runs very different than it runs in the States. We were recently rejected for a credit card here. Why? Because we're both over 60. And BAC, Banco Costa Rica, will not allow anyone over 60 to have a credit card because they assume if you're over 60, you're retired and you can't pay it. Even though we were able to say, hey, this is what our monthly income is, and it's way more than anything. The only reason we wanted it is because they were going to give us 4% back from our PriceSmart Costco purchases. But we weren't qualified for it. So that's one of those weird little things. They have these weird little rules and laws. I'm trying to navigate all this to write everything down about this, including about the healthcare, because there's so many different healthcare systems here. There's private, there's public, and there's a lot of difference between the two of them. There's a lot of difference between which ones you can use with what insurance. We have Blue Cross Blue Shield Federal Employment Program, and to use that here, we have to stick with pre-approved hospitals, which means not going to SEMA or Archangel Raphael in Liberia. It means going to Hospital Metropolitano in San Jose. It means going to Hospital Metropolitano here. So those little dumb things, they apply. They're dumb, but they're a real thing here, unfortunately. Okay, I see I've been talking almost an hour, and my lungs are starting to go. So I need to alter my description here. Now that I've talked a whole lot more about Costa Rica than I intended to do. Residency, housing, international house hunters, renting, all that. It's very interesting with residency, how much it varies from place to place, from country to country, from state to state. So don't be fooled when you have some uneducated doofus that says, oh, all you have to do is show up and live there, because that's not at all how it works. Okay, love you guys. I'm going to go. I'm putting off mopping. God, I hate mopping. I'm after my husband to hire somebody to replace our dear Sylvia, since she still has returned from Nicaragua, and I am in need now of somebody to clean my house. I do not think that that's something that I want to do now with stroke recovery. It's really hard to sweep and mop if you have no balance. Okay, I'll see you guys later.